The day Daniel Reed lost his job, his 9-year-old son watched every second of it and didn't make a sound. He stood beside his father in a boardroom that cost more than their entire apartment building, wearing dirty sneakers with a tear near the left toe, holding his father's hand with both of his own, and he watched 42 floors above Manhattan while powerful strangers decided that a tired man's desperation was an inconvenience they didn't have time for. Noah didn't cry. He didn't look away. He just held on tighter, the way children do when they understand that the world is being cruel but don't yet have the words to name it. Daniel Reed had not planned this morning. He never would have planned this. But life, as he had learned in the hardest possible way, rarely waits for a man to be ready. 3 hours earlier, everything had fallen apart at once. The babysitter canceled by text at 5 in the morning, the neighbor didn't answer, Noah's school was shut because of an unexpected heating failure, and Daniel had stood in their small kitchen staring at a stack of overdue electric bills while his son ate cereal quietly beside him, and he had felt the particular exhaustion of a man who has already used every option he had and still come up short. He had been feeling that exhaustion for 2.5 years. Since the hospital, since Emily. "I can stay home alone," Noah had said softly, not looking up from his bowl. "You're 9. I'll lock the door." "No." Noah had lowered his eyes, and Daniel had looked at his son's face, that too composed, too careful, too old face, and felt his chest ache in the way it always did when he saw how much growing up grief had forced into such a small person. So he had whispered, "Just stay close to me today, okay?" And Noah had nodded, and neither of them had known that those words were the beginning of neither could have imagined. Before tragedy entered Daniel's life, he had been different. He had been a junior software engineer in Brooklyn with genuine promise and a wife who teased him that he understood computers better than he understood people, and she wasn't entirely wrong. They lived in a small apartment and ate takeout on the fire escape in summer and talked about a house with a backyard someday, the way young couples do when the future still feels like something they're walking toward together. Then Emily got sick, aggressive leukemia, the kind the doctors apologize for before they say the word out loud. By the time treatment began, options were already closing. Daniel left engineering for lower-paying maintenance work with flexible hours so he could be at the hospital every day that mattered. And in those final months, almost every day mattered. He had been with her at the end. He had held her hand until there was no more hand to hold. And when he walked out of that hospital room and back into the world looked exactly the same as it had before. Same streets, same sky, same noise. And that sameness felt like the cruelest thing he had ever experienced, because nothing inside him was the same. Nothing inside him would ever be quite the same again. After that, life became survival. Every morning before sunrise, lunches packed in the dark, laundry folded at midnight, rent notices slid under the door, cheap groceries stretched across the whole week. Some nights Daniel slept 2 hours, some nights not at all. He never complained about it, not once, not to anyone, because Noah had already lost enough, and Daniel had decided quietly and without ceremony that his son would not lose anything more if he could help it. 9-year-old Noah Reed was not like other children, and not because he was extraordinary, though he was, but because loss had made him older than he had any right to be. While other kids argued loudly over games and toys, Noah spent his hours filling battered sketchbooks with drawings that belonged to a much older mind. Computer networks, bridge architectures, strange mechanical inventions that existed only in the quiet space behind his eyes. He rarely caused problems, rarely asked for things. Some evenings, Daniel would find him sitting perfectly still near the window, staring at the framed photograph of Emily on the sill, and Noah would not move or speak for a long time. Just look, the way you look at something you are afraid of forgetting. Some nights he asked questions that broke Daniel in two. Do you think she can still hear us when we talk to her photo? Daniel never knew what to say, so he would sit down beside his son and pull him close, and Noah would lean against him without a word, and for a little while the apartment felt less empty than it was. Those were the moments Daniel lived for, those small, quiet moments of just being together, which cost nothing and meant everything. On the morning everything changed, the emergency alert came through at 5:12 a.m. Black Ridge system breach. All support staff report immediately. Daniel dressed in the dark and made his calls. The babysitter, the neighbor, his sister 2 states away who couldn't reach them in time. Every door closed, and so he made the only choice left to him, the choice that desperation makes when it has exhausted all other options. He brought his son to work. He told himself it would be fine. He told himself Noah would sit quietly in a corner and nobody would even notice. He was wrong about the second part. CEO Eleanor Graves had built Black Ridge Technologies from nothing, and the entire building knew it because everything about her reminded them of it. At 39, she was already one of the most feared executives in corporate America. Investors called her unstoppable. Her employees called her something less generous, mostly in whispers near the coffee machines. She had built herself into someone untouchable because softness had once cost her family everything. Her father had lost their entire world to a financial scandal when Eleanor was 12. House gone, friends gone, reporters camped on their street for months, and Eleanor had sat alone in hotel lobbies waiting for a father too consumed by his disasters to notice she was disappearing. She had made herself a silent promise in those lobbies. She would never be the one left waiting again. So she had climbed. Relationships faded. Birthdays became meetings, and somewhere along the way, Eleanor Graves had stopped seeing employees as people and started seeing them as variables, productivity, performance, risk, nothing more. So when Daniel Reed walked onto her executive operations floor during the worst cyber attack in company history, holding a child's hand, she did not see a grieving man who had run out of choices. She saw a problem. The moment Noah stepped onto that floor, conversations stopped. Board members frowned. Someone muttered something not worth repeating. Noah moved instinctively closer to his father, and Daniel felt his stomach tighten into something cold and hard. Then came Eleanor's heels on the marble, slow, sharp, precise, and the room shrank. "Mr. Reed, explain this." He swallowed. "My childcare fell through. I had no other option. This floor handles classified operations. I know, he'll stay quiet, I promise. This is not a daycare." The room held its breath. Daniel tried once more, his voice dropping lower. "His mother passed away 2 years ago. I just need a few hours until I can find—" "Everyone here has personal problems," she said. "This company is losing millions of dollars by the hour." Daniel's face burned, not with anger. Grief had exhausted him too deeply for anger, but with the particular shame of a good man being reduced in front of his child. He wanted to explain everything, the 2 years alone, the medical bills still sitting in a drawer he couldn't bring himself to open, the way he had rebuilt himself from engineer to maintenance worker and told himself every morning that it was okay, that surviving was enough. But the words wouldn't come. They never came when he needed them most. "Your access privileges are revoked effective immediately." The words landed like a door closing, forever. Daniel stood very still.
Around the room, not one person spoke, not one person moved. He reached up slowly and removed his security badge. He set it on the table without a sound. Then he said, very quietly, "Thank you for the opportunity." And he took his son's hand, and together they walked toward the elevator, while the entire room watched in silence.
Just before the doors closed, Noah looked back. Something on the security monitor caught his eye. A pattern in the scrolling code, a repetition with a rhythm he couldn't name, but somehow recognized from somewhere. He stared at it for 3 full seconds. Then the elevator doors slid shut, and they were gone. By early afternoon, Blackridge was collapsing from the inside. Every recovery attempt the security division launched failed within minutes. The attackers seemed to anticipate every move, every countermeasure, every rebuilt wall. Panic had replaced professionalism, and for the first time in the history of the company she had built with her own hands, Eleanor Graves stood at her office window, feeling something she had spent her entire career refusing to feel. She stood there a long time. The city below moved without her, indifferent and glittering. Several blocks away, Daniel and Noah sat inside a small diner. Rain moved slowly down the window glass. A plate of shared fries sat between them, because Daniel couldn't afford much else that week, and he wasn't ready to tell Noah that yet. He scrolled through job listings on his cracked phone screen and said nothing. Noah barely touched his food. He was thinking about that monitor, that pattern, that strange repeating rhythm that reminded him of something he had seen weeks earlier, when his father had been working late from home and left a cybersecurity training simulation running on his laptop. Noah had watched it for nearly an hour, the way other children watch cartoons, absorbed, quiet, completely still. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a pencil stub. He slid a paper napkin toward him and began to draw. Daniel noticed. "What are you drawing, buddy?" "That pattern from the screen upstairs." His pencil moved carefully. It kept doing the same thing over and over. "It's probably nothing, Noah." "No." The boy turned the napkin around. "Look." Daniel looked. His eyes moved across the sketch, then went still, then went wide, because what his 9-year-old son had drawn on a diner napkin, imperfectly, in pencil, with a child's hand, was a recursive authentication loop. The attackers were not forcing their way through Blackridge's defenses. The company's own emergency recovery protocol was reopening access from the inside, automatically, every single time the security team tried to lock them out. Every fix was creating a new invitation. The system was fighting itself. An entire security division had been staring at it for 6 hours without seeing it. Daniel's hands were shaking as he opened his laptop and connected to the public emergency logs, still partially visible through his suspended credentials. 30 seconds later, he pushed back from the table and pressed both hands flat against its surface and just breathed. Noah watched him with calm, careful eyes. "Was I right?" he asked quietly. Daniel looked at his son, this boy who had lost his mother and drawn robots in the dark and never once asked the world to feel sorry for him, and said, "Yeah, buddy, you were right." When Eleanor's assistant appeared at her office door, holding the phone like it might bite, Eleanor had already been staring at her city for an hour. "It's Daniel Reed. He says he knows how to stop it." Pride lives very close to the surface in people who have built themselves out of pain, and for one long, dangerous moment, it almost made her say no. Then she looked at the red warnings pulsing across every screen in the building. "Send them up," she said. They came back through the lobby with rainwater still on Daniel's jacket and Noah clutching his sketchbook with both hands. Employees stared. Nobody said anything.
Eleanor met them near the operations center without warmth and without apology, not yet, and Daniel began to explain quickly, pointing at the logs, walking her engineers through the loop. Several of them crossed their arms. One shook his head slowly. Then Noah stepped forward and pointed at one specific section of the scrolling code. Just pointed, one small finger. "That part," he whispered. The analyst isolated it. The room went completely silent. The particular silence of people realizing they had been wrong about something important for a long time. Then someone exhaled a single word that nobody repeated, and the room exploded into motion. Commands, isolated systems, rewritten protocols. For nearly an hour, nobody stopped moving. Then one by one, slowly, the red warnings disappeared. Servers stabilized, data recovered, the company survived. And sitting in a chair near the back of the operations floor, eating vending machine crackers and drawing quietly in his sketchbook, was the person most responsible for all of it. A 9-year-old boy in dirty sneakers who didn't fully understand what he had done and wouldn't have made a fuss about it even if he had. That night, Eleanor stayed in her office long after the building emptied. She stood at her window for a long time, and slowly, without wanting to, she kept seeing Noah's face, that composed, careful, too adult expression when Daniel placed the badge on the table. She saw the boy lower his eyes so his father wouldn't see him cry. And then, without warning, she wasn't seeing Noah at all. She was seeing herself, age 12, a hotel lobby, her father's empty chair across from her, learning to fold everything soft inside herself into something small and hidden because nobody around her had time for it. She had spent 30 years climbing away from that lobby, and somewhere at the top of the climb, without noticing, she had become the person who put other people's children in that chair.
She sat with that for a long time. Outside, the city kept moving, and something that had been locked inside Eleanor Graves for a very long while quietly came open. The next evening, she invited Daniel to the executive lounge just before sunset. The skyline had turned amber beyond the glass. Noah sat in the corner, sketching a bridge design on the back of a conference agenda. Neither adult spoke for a while. Then Eleanor said the words that do not come easily to people who have spent their lives making themselves untouchable. I was wrong. Not a corporate apology, not language crafted by lawyers. Something harder and more honest than either of those things. I judged you without understanding your life, she said quietly. I humiliated you in front of your son. I built this company believing that discipline mattered more than compassion. And your boy reminded me what real leadership looks like. Daniel said nothing for a long moment. He was too tired for anger and too honest for easy forgiveness. But he listened. And that was enough for now. She offered him a senior leadership role overseeing Blackridge's rebuilt cybersecurity division. Better salary, real benefits, remote flexibility, full family support. Daniel sat with it. Trust does not repair itself in a single conversation, and he knew that better than most. But then Noah looked up from his drawing, that quiet, serious, beloved face, and gave his father a small, slow smile, the kind that says everything is going to be okay without using a single word. Daniel accepted. What followed inside Blackridge Technologies surprised everyone. Flexible schedules, emergency childcare support, mental health leave, remote work protections for parents in impossible situations. Employees who had spent years afraid to speak honestly began, slowly and carefully, to feel like human beings again. And the strange and beautiful truth was this.
1 year later, Blackridge Technologies held its annual innovation conference in Chicago. More than 4,000 people filled the auditorium. Bright lights, a crowd full of energy and noise. And standing beside Eleanor Graves at the center of that stage was a nervous 10-year-old boy in a navy blue suit with sleeves slightly too long, because his father had bought it a size up, the way fathers do when they want a moment to last a little longer than it will. Eleanor told the whole story, everything. Her mistake, Daniel's struggle, the cyber attack, the napkin, the little boy nobody wanted in the room who quietly saved the company that had fired his father. By the time she finished, 4,000 people sat in complete silence. Then the crying started. Not loud, not dramatic, but the quiet kind. The kind that means something true has landed. She reached into a velvet box and removed a small crystal award. She knelt so she was at eye level with the boy and held it out to him. Engraved on the front in clean letters, "The boy who saved us." Noah looked at it for a long time. Then he looked out past the lights, past the thousands of strangers, and found his father's face in the crowd. Daniel was standing near the back, where he always stood, where quiet people always stand. His eyes were full of tears he was no longer trying to hide. He was smiling, and for the first time in 2.5 years, the smile reached all the way. None of the applause mattered in that moment. None of the awards or the new title or the office with a window. What mattered was this. After years of surviving instead of living, after years of grief too heavy to name, Daniel Reed was standing in a room full of light, watching his son be truly seen for exactly who he was and everything he carried and all the quiet, impossible, beautiful things he had always been. Sometimes life breaks your heart only to lead you somewhere healing can finally begin. And sometimes the smallest person in the room, the one with the dirty shoes and the sketchbook full of impossible things, becomes the reason everyone else remembers how to be human again. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that kindness still matters, that quiet people carry great things, that children see what adults have forgotten how to see, then this channel was made for you. Subscribe to the Kind Soul Stories. Every story we tell is a reminder that ordinary people live extraordinary lives, and that the world becomes a little warmer when someone takes the time to tell those stories with care. Like this video if it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and leave a comment telling us, where are you watching from, and which part of this story stayed with you the longest? This story carries lasting value across several areas of human experience. It honestly portrays the invisible struggle of single parenthood, the daily exhaustion, the impossible choices, the silent dignity of parents who hold everything together without recognition. It treats grief as a lived reality rather than a plot device, showing how loss reshapes identity, career, and a child's emotional world. It challenges workplace culture by demonstrating how compassionless leadership causes silent suffering, and how empathy-rooted policy change produces stronger, more loyal organizations. It honors the hidden intelligence of children, reminding adults that young minds absorb and process complex information in ways that consistently surprise us. And it models genuine accountability, not as strategy, but as a deeply human act that can begin to repair